Mr. Robinson, did not I mention it to you? Mr. Robinson is asking him how he liked our Meriton assemblies and whether he did not think there were a great many pretty women in the room, and which he thought the prettiest, and his answer immediately to the last question, oh, the added Mrs. Bennet, beyond a doubt. There cannot be two opinions on that point. Upon my word, well, that is very decided indeed. That does seem as if, but however, it may all come to nothing, you know. Mine overhearing were more to purpose than yours. Eliza said,
Charlotte.
Mr. Darcy is not so well worth listening to us. His friend is he, poor Eliza, to be only just tolerable. I bet you would not put it into Lizzie's head to be convinced by his ill treatment, for he is such a disagreeable man that it would be quite a misfortune to be liked by him. Mrs. Long told me last night that he sat close to her for half an hour without once opening his lips. Are you quite sure, ma'am? Is not there a little mistake? Said Jim. I suddenly saw Mr. Darcy speaking to her, because she asked him at last how he liked Netherfield. He could not have answered her, but she said he seemed quite angry at being spoke to. Mrs. Bingley told me, said Jim, that he never speaks much unless among his intimate
acquaintance.
With them he is remarkably agreeable.
Okay, Reverend, thank you. Right, so we will discuss that part. So that's very funny, right? How Darcy is pictured without once opening his lips. Yeah. Okay. So now this discussion is between these ladies who are like analyzing. It's almost like holding the post-mortem, right? Holding the post-mortem of this event. So post-analysis. So, you mean what I overheard between him and Mr. Robinson? Did I not mention it to you? So here him means Darcy. Mr. Robinson is asking him how he liked our Meryton assemblies. So assemblies here refers to not just the meeting but the party. And whether he did not think there were a great many pretty women in the room, and which he thought the prettiest. So again, so this conversation is analyzed, and he's answering immediately to the last question, or the eldest Miss Bennet, beyond a doubt. So there you can see Jane was acknowledged as this very pretty woman by everyone, even introverts like this person. And there also you can see that she deserves to be the head lead or the first lead. We just discussed about this idea, Reverend, about the first leads and second leads that day when you were absent. So it was like, that usually the first lead or the first lead couple are like the most perfect or ideal duo. But here you can see what happens is the other way around. So the perfect or the first lead would be Jane and Bingley. They are pretty, they're handsome. When we consider the couple, they're like the kind of the ideal couple. But the first lead in Pride and Prejudice would be Darcy and Elizabeth, who are kind of, far from being ideal. They're not ideal, they are kind of, introvert. When we consider Darcy, he's introvert, and when we consider Elizabeth, she's not the ideal picture of a lady, right? But again, you can see how the tables have turned. Okay. So again, yeah, there cannot be two opinions on that point. So Miss Bennet, eldest Miss Bennet, which is Jane, is identified as this prettiest picture, kind of like pictures give lady. Upon my word, well, that was very decided indeed. That does seem as if, but however, it may all come to nothing, you know. So what is the idea here, reverence? It may all come to nothing, you know, even though she is considered as the prettiest. Why is it like reduced to that idea? It may all come to nothing. What is the idea there, even though she is considered like the prettiest?
Their classes.
Exactly. So because of this class issue, even though she is the prettiest, so there would not be a marriage. So that is the idea. So they're guessing even now. So there won't be something like that because the class barrier, as you said, would come in between anyway. So that is the idea there. Yeah. So my overhearings are more to the purpose than yours, Elisa, said Charlotte. Can you remember who is Charlotte? In the movie, also she is there. Yeah.
Who introduce each other?
No, not exactly, Reverend. Charlotte is this young person. Yeah, that's okay. I know that you are. Yeah, the one who gets married to the priest. Can you remember? There's this priest who proposes to Elizabeth. Yeah, and Charlotte is the one who gets married to
The
him.
youngest sister.
Not the youngest sister, Reverend. She is Elizabeth's friend.
Oh, yeah, yes. another.
Yeah. So she's like this daughter of Mrs. Lucas. This is Mrs. Lucas, and she is Miss Lucas, Charlotte Lucas, right? Okay. So here Charlotte is also contributing to this discussion. Mr. Darcy is not so well worth listening to as his friend is he. Poor Eliza. Here Eliza means Elizabeth. So Eliza shows that she has this dear bond with her, kind of this endearing bond with her. Yeah, that's why she's calling her Eliza, just like a pet name, right? Yeah. To be only just tolerable. So who said that Eliza or Elizabeth is only tolerable? Who said it, Reverence? Can you remember in the movie? Someone said that Elizabeth is only tolerable. She's not that pretty.
Mother.
No, I don't want to mingle with her. We were discussing about this first impression or love at first sight. Darcy, yes, Darcy said she's only tolerable, right? So there you can see. So others are criticizing it because Elizabeth is loved by everyone. She may not be as prettier as Jane or as outgoing as the other sisters. She loves to read. She's kind of different from the other ladies, true. But again, you can see she's loved by all of these people. I'm not referring to Jens, but the closer circle. Maybe Charlotte and the other sisters, and specifically the father, they all love her. So it is kind of, it's like a prick for them because they do not like it. The fact that Darcy addresses Elizabeth as only tolerable, right? So they are kind of hurt by this idea. So there you can see Charlotte is specifically hurt by this. And even the mother, right, Mrs. Bennet, I beg you would not put it into Lizzie's head to be waxed by his ill treatment. So there you can see even the mother. So you can clearly see when we were reading this chapter 2, father loves Elizabeth most, right? But the mother doesn't love her the most. But again, even that mother, right, even though she's not her favorite daughter, she's hurt too because Elizabeth is loved again. So there she says, I beg you would not put it into Lizzie's head. Literally, don't tell her that Darcy told something like that. To be vexed by his ill treatment. Vexed means, reverence, annoyed. Yeah, annoyed by his ill treatment. Vexed means annoyed. And also, Mrs. Bennet doesn't have a good opinion on him anyway, for he is such a disagreeable man that it would be quite a misfortune to be liked by him. So that is her idea on Darcy. He is such a disagreeable man, so not a person who can be loved or even respected. It would be quite a misfortune to be liked by him. So you know that Mrs. Bennet is always on the hunt of men. She's literally hunting men, right? Who are of this marriageable age. But again, even she thinks of him as it would be a misfortune. It would be such a kind of, a misfortune even to be liked by him. So Mrs. Long told me last night that he sat close to her for half an hour without once opening his lips. So what does that say about Darcy's character? Yeah, very much introvert, Reverend, right? Very silent. Doesn't want even to open his lips. So doesn't want to initiate a conversation. Yeah. And also, it's like that he doesn't want to show that he's not someone like him. He doesn't want to kind of, sugarcoat his character. Yeah. So he's kind of totally okay with showing his real character to the world. So I've known kind of many introverts. So when we kind of, meet a person, we can kind of, not immediately, but when we get together, kind of, when we get along with a person, right, when we spend time together, we can identify a character as introvert or extrovert or ambivert. So most of the people in the world would be ambivert. Yeah, but when a person is extremely introvert, we can see that whether that person is introvert or not. And also there are some introverts who are trying hard to show that they are not introverts, right? And Darcy is not someone like that. He doesn't want to show that he is not an introvert, as in he's not trying to be an extrovert like Bingley. And also when we consider Bingley, reverence, Bingley is actually an extrovert, even though he can be very much nervous at times, right, when he's proposing. Can you remember? So Darcy is the one who directs him. So again you can see, no matter how much introvert Darcy is the one who takes action at times, right? Not Bingley, who is the extrovert. So that's why you cannot kind of label people as like introverts are always shy, they are like they are not kind of able to take decisions. But you can say Darcy is a good decision maker than Bingley, who is an extrovert, right?
When the time is right.
Exactly, when the time is right. And also introverts can be more wiser than extroverts, because they are not kind of, I would say, not misusing words, right, as extroverts. Yes, so that happens. Okay, so are you quite sure, ma'am? Is not there a little mistake, said Jane. I certainly saw Mr. Darcy speaking to her. So there you can say Jane is trying to tone down the situation, I told you. She doesn't want to see bad aspects of people. Yeah, so she's kind of trying to sugarcoat Darcy. Yeah, he's not like that. I saw, right? Yeah, Mr. Darcy speaking to her. And also, in a way, Mrs. Long may be kind of, exaggerating the situation. Maybe he has kind of, shared a word or two with her, maybe about the weather or something like that. But, she can be exaggerating. And also, on the other hand, Jane can be sugarcoating the incident, sugarcoating the character of Mr. Darcy. I. So, can you remember the meaning of I, reverence? Yes, exactly. Very good. Okay. Because she asked him at last how he liked Netherfield, and he could not help answering her. But she said he seemed very angry at being spoke to. Again, you can see, right? Yeah. So it's like, that Mr. Darcy has not willingly spoken. That is the idea. But again, you can see Mrs. Long was exaggerating as well. She asked him at last how he liked Netherfield. He could not help answering her. So it was not kind of, willingly spoken. Right? Yeah. Forced to speak, literally. But she said he seemed very angry. So there you can see. So literally the perfect introvert. So I would think that it is not kind of a wrong statement to make as well. The best introvert you would find in English literature, right? But on the other hand, you can see he is the most liked person by the readership. So I don't know whether Dr. Varuni has kind of discussed this with you. So I think that was with the first years. So she has kind of told them that Mr. Darcy is kind of, loved by all the women who have done English literature. So he's like this major crush of all the ladies who have done English literature. So she has taught that to the first years and asked them to ask me whether I have also liked him. So it is like that, that we are like in our teenage when we are studying these books, right? And then so Darcy seems to be very kind of likable despite being this introvert. So there you can see, so the perfect introvert but also the one who's liked by everyone. Yeah, there you can see that there's this misconception that you have to be an extrovert to be liked by everyone. No, right? So Darcy is someone who's kind of shattering down that misconception. Yeah. Okay. So, yes, Miss Bingley told me, said Jane, that he never speaks much unless among his intimate acquaintance. Acquaintance here means reverence? Yeah, intimate friends. The close circle, I would say, easy manner. What does that say, Reverend? Kind of psychologically?
Maybe he feel comfortable when we are like-minded people.
Exactly, Reverend. When you are close with someone, so that is true for all the introverts in the world, psychologically. Right? So it is psychologically proven as well. Introverts are, far better than extroverts when they are in this close circle. Right? So you can be very open to the close circle. That is the idea here. So Darcy is also like that. Even though he is introvert, right? Very much introverted. He is this introvert. But when he is within this close circle, he can be very much agreeable, very likable. So that is the idea. So you can see how he opens up to Elizabeth, right? Later, even in the movie. Yeah. Okay. So we stopped reading from that moment, Reverend. Yeah. You may continue. I do not believe a word. Yeah, I will just stop you, Reverend, because there's, yeah, okay.
I do not believe a word of it, my dear. If he had been so very agreeable, he would have talked to Mrs. Long. But I can guess how it was. Everybody says that he is eat up with pride, and I dare say he had heard somehow that Mrs. Long does not keep a carriage, and had come to the ball in a hack chaise. I do not mind his not talking to Mrs. Long, said Miss Lucas, but I wish he had danced with Eliza. Another time, Lizzie, said her mother, I would not dance with him if I were you. I believe, ma'am, I may safely promise you never to dance with him. His pride, said Miss Lucas, does not offend me so much as pride often does, because there is an excuse for it. One cannot wonder that so very fine a young man, with family, fortune, everything in his favor, should think highly of himself. If I may so express it, he has a right to be proud. That is very true, replied Elizabeth, and I could easily forgive his pride if he had not mortified mine.
Okay, Reverend, thank you. Right, okay. So there you can see, I do not believe a word of it, my dear. If he had been so very agreeable, he would have talked to Mrs. Long. So here you can see the misconception, right? Again, the unawareness of the psychological conditions, I would say. Because here the initial argument is that he is remarkably agreeable within his closer circle. But Mrs. Bennet doesn't agree with it. So if a person is an introvert, he's an introvert for everyone. So that is the idea. So kind of like cliche arguments, I would say, right? So arguments kind of, those are not a very empirical argument. Empirical means based on evidence. Reverend, yeah, let me write it here. Yes, Reverend? Not empirical argument, Reverend. I mentioned this word cliche. Yeah, so that means it's like that something is accepted by everyone. So that is so much generalized, but that may not be true.
We cannot use in academic writing.
Yeah, you cannot use that word. I was just mentioning it. Yeah, something like that. Yes, cliche arguments. So when you are kind of doing something, let's say you are engaging in a research, you cannot use these cliche arguments, right? You have to use empirical evidence. That means based on evidence. So you can see this is not very empirical. So obviously, so they were not receiving proper education as well. It's not even a question to talk about psychology. They are not aware. And also there you can see one of the main themes of this book, Reverence. What is that? When you say I do not believe a word of it, I can guess how it was. Everybody says that he's ate up with pride. So actually the major two themes, pride and prejudice both. So this shows Mrs. Bennet's prejudice, her prejudice. Yeah. And also the idea he's ate up with pride. What is the meaning of this, Reverend? Ate up with, yeah, exactly. Yeah, possessed and obsessed with pride too much. But again, it is not very true of his character, right? So they are prejudice. Again, you can see how the book kind of, pitting against these two characteristics. Pride on one hand and prejudice on the other hand. So those are like, always pitted against each other, that you can see. And then I dare say he had heard somehow that Mrs. Long does not keep a carriage and had come to the ball in a hack chaise. So hack chaise means, Reverend, like a hired carriage. Yeah, you may write it down, hired carriage, and it's just like a bus these days. Bus or train? Yeah, public transport. You may write it, public transport plus, yeah, a hired carriage. Not so posh as a kind of an Uber or Pick Me. It is also kind of a hired thing, no? Right? Yeah. But this is like public transport, like bus, using the bus or transport. Any idea that you want to share, Reverend? Yeah.
No, you remember in the Great Expedition also.
Exactly. Yes, there was this public transport. Yeah, so that's not very posh. Yeah, so that is the idea. And even in Uber and Pick Me, there's this kind of grading, right? Yeah, the posh vehicle. Yeah, so the initial point would be a bike. Yeah, Pick Me bike or Uber bike. Yeah, and then you have tuk-tuks. After that you have cab, like this nano cab, the mini cab. Yeah, the kind of the cute little thing. And then you have this normal kind of a car. That means either Alto or Maruti would be the next stage, and the posh one if you want to go to an event using a Pick Me or an Uber if you don't want to drive, or so something like that. So that would be the posh one. So like that, there is this grading system as well. Okay, right. So your copies of Great Expectations is here. Thank you. definitely. Okay. I have to cut off the unnecessary parts as well, but I will give you a break and then during that time I'll do that. Okay. Right. So where were we?
I do not mind.
Ah, yes, yes. Okay. And also before that reference, I dare say he had heard somehow that Mrs. Long does not keep a carriage and had come to the ball in a hack chaise. So what is the idea here, Reverend? So they think Darcy has not spoken to her because she came using public transport. What is the idea there? Class, exactly. You may write down the theme of class. But we need to remember Darcy is not such a person. Yeah, he finally gets married to someone from a lower class. I mean, not lower, but lower than his own class. So there you can see prejudice, the idea of class plus prejudice. Yeah. As in, because she was not so posh, yeah, he did not speak to her. And also this idea of gossiping is very prominent, right? So these are gossips. Yeah. And then Miss Lucas Charlotte says, yeah, you may write down. I do not mind he's not talking to Mrs. Long, said Miss Lucas, but I wish he had danced with Eliza. Again, you can say that they are kind of, always revolving around the idea of marriage. So Elizabeth doesn't need it. You can see it, even though there's this developing or budding romance after kind of, I would say, a few chapters. At this moment, Elizabeth doesn't need it at all. Right? Yeah. But the way Miss Lucas, so Charlotte looks at it, shows how, girls used to think about this idea of marriage. Always an opportunity. A man means an opportunity, but not just another man, right? Just a man with a good fortune and good looks and, yeah, financial security. A man with financial security, exactly. Right. And also not only financial security as well, Reverend, right? So here we can see when it comes to Miss Lucas, she is thinking about that aspect, true, financial security. But can you remember what Mrs. Bennet says? It would be quite a misfortune to be liked by him. So not only financial security, because Darcy would be the man who can provide the most financial security, because he's like the most rich person. But again, they expected all these gentlemanly qualities. Yeah, being an extrovert, being outgoing, right? Yeah, no matter whether that person is a playboy, right? They would kind of appreciate this idea of being extrovert. That's why Bingley becomes a better catch than Darcy, even though Darcy is richer. Right? Yeah. So class is also there, and also, the conduct, the behavior. Yes. Okay. Another time, Lizzie said her mother, I would not dance with him if I were you. Again, you can see, right? So, mother, even though how much she is worried about this idea of marriage, she doesn't want Elizabeth to be coupled with Darcy. I believe, ma'am, I may safely promise you never to dance with him. So, there you can see Elizabeth it is very ironic. And also anti foreshadowing reference. Yeah, it is foreshadowing, but does this happen? She literally gets married to Darcy, right? Yeah. So anti foreshadowing, you can see there. Elizabeth is not agreeing with it. I could easily forgive his pride if he had not mortified mine. Here, mortified means, what do you think is the idea, Reverend? Mortified. If he had not kind of, hurt my pride, or I would say the best word there would be humiliated. Yeah, humiliated my pride, or hurt my pride, torn my pride. So there you can say Elizabeth is equally proud, right? Yeah. Catering to the major theme of the novel. Okay. So can you read, Reverend, from Pride to the end of the chapter?
Pride observed Mary, who
Picked.
picked herself upon the solidity of her reflection, is a very common feeling. I believe, by all that I have ever read, I am convinced that it is very common in that human nature is particularly prone to it, and that there are very few of us who do not
Cherish.
cherish a feeling of self
Complacency. C.
complacency on the score of some quality or other, real or imaginary. Vanity and pride are different things, though the words are often used synonymously. A person may be proud without being vain. Pride relates more to our opinion of ourselves. Vanity to what we would have others think of us. If I were as rich as Mr. Darcy, carried a young Lucas who came with his sister, I should not care how proud I was. I would keep a fake of
Foxhounds.
foxhound and drink a bottle of wine at it. Then you would drink a great deal more than you ought, said Mrs. Bennet. And if I were to see you at it, I should take away your bottle directly. The boy protested that she should not. She continued to declare that she would, and the argument ended only with the visit.
Okay, Reverend, thank you. Right, okay. So with that we come to an end. We can finally be W to Darcy and Elizabeth. Okay, so here you can see this prevailing concept of pride in society, as in the prevailing social concept, what people believe about pride. It is not accepted by Elizabeth, you can say, right? So because she is also hurt by Darcy's pride. By Darcy's pride, Elizabeth's pride is kind of, attacked. That's why she's angry with kind of the idea. And then you can also see how pride is analyzed throughout the story. If you are asked to write something about the concept of pride in Pride and Prejudice, you can see how pride, the word, is defined and analyzed. So here the next paragraph would be an analysis of pride. You may write it down, Reverend, how pride is analyzed throughout the story. This is just one instance, or the first instance. Pride observed Mary, that paragraph. Yeah, so what is the idea of picked, Reverend? Picked herself? Yeah, stimulated or rouse. Yeah. Herself upon the solidity of her reflections. So here she's kind of talking about her idea is a very common failing, I believe. So it is like that, it is something that everybody possesses, something like that, right? So her idea, a very common failing, so kind of a very general thing that everybody possesses. Pride is common to everyone. That is her argument. By all that I have ever read, I am convinced that it is very common indeed, that human nature is particularly prone to it. Prone means bent towards it. Yeah, you may write it down, Reverence. Prone means bent towards it. So it is something common to human nature, that is her idea. And that there are very few of us who do not cherish a feeling of self-complacency. So cherish, you know, right? Yeah, celebrate. A feeling of self-complacency. Self-complacency means self-satisfaction. Yeah, you may write it down. So not only kind of, celebrate, but also holding something as dear. That is meant by cherish as well. On the scope of some quality or other, real or imaginary. So there you can say that it is again that we cannot agree, right? Self-satisfaction and pride. Do you think those are like one thing or two things, Reverend? Self-satisfaction and pride, when we consider those two qualities. Two, right? Exactly two. So pride is something like, it's like you are thinking high of yourself and looking down on the others. Yeah, but self-satisfaction is something not like that. It means you are satiated or you are contented with yourself, your ideals and that idea.
Madam, pride is little bit similar to that you mentioned idea snobs.
Snob, Reverend. In a way, but being a snob is kind of, even worse than being proud, Reverend, right? So snobbish means you are kind of, it's like you are thinking very highly about yourself, and also you are respecting those who are coming from the upper class, and you are kind of discriminating and looking down upon, looking with contempt towards those who are coming from a lower position. Yeah, it is kind of, far worse than being proud. So again, being proud is not something kind of a very good quality, right? Yeah, so proud literally means you think like, very highly of yourself. Yeah, so self satisfaction and pride. So here two ideas are contrasted. And yeah, vanity and pride are different things. Again, you can say, can you remember vanity? Yeah, it's like, being, I would say, very useless. It's like your insides are empty. So in Sinhala this means his baba. It kind of, I think it sums up everything. When it's like being empty inside, you have nothing deep inside. Yeah, but again, when you say, yeah, I'm glad that you brought out the point, Reverend. But when we consider nothingness, let's say with relation to Buddhism, that to nothingness means kind of, having so much, maybe like that, right? Yeah, shunyata in a way. So that's not this vanity, but in kind of an, I would say, yeah, nothingness, not exactly nothingness, but emptiness. Yeah, emptiness, as in the intellectual emptiness, maybe. Yeah, it's like that you are kind of, attracted to all these vain stuff, like, posh clothes or something like that. Yeah, the outward stuff can be materialistic things. That idea, vanity and pride are different things, though the words are often used synonymously. You can see these words are used synonymously, right? So those are kind of, treated as synonyms, used in the similar manner by people, but that is wrong. So that is her idea. A person may be proud without being vain. So one can be proud about oneself, but without being kind of, without having this intellectual emptiness. Yeah, something like that. A person can be proud about maybe his or her achievements. Yeah, but again, without being vain. Again, that's her idea. But that pride is also a part of vanity, I would say. So that's what Austen is trying to say, even though this is analyzed by Mary, who is not kind of a very intellectual person, I would say, just like Elizabeth, right? Yeah. So this is one of the sisters. Pride relates more to our opinion of ourselves, vanity to what we would have others think of us. Again, that's her definition. So that's how she defines it. Mary defines pride as more to our opinion of ourselves. That means we are kind of, thinking very proudly about ourselves, that idea. And vanity to what we would have others think of us. So that's her idea again. So she says vanity is when, we let people think that we are proud. Something like that. So, or else we let people think highly of us. Something like that, Reverend. But again, you cannot have these as the exact definitions of pride or vanity. But I told you how pride is analyzed throughout the story, not the dictionary definitions. It is analyzed by different characters at different moments. Earlier, also, you saw how Mrs. Bennet considers Darcy to be proud. Likewise, there are these prejudices as well as different analysis of the concept of pride. Yeah. And then, if I were as rich as Mr. Darcy, cried a young Lucas, that means one of Charlotte's younger brothers, maybe, who came with his sisters. I should not care how proud I was. I would keep a pack of foxhounds. So, who is a foxhound, Reverend? As the name suggests you, hounds. A posh dog breed. Let me show you a picture. Even those days there were all these, posh breeds of dogs. These dogs are used as a symbol of what, Reverend? Yeah, aristocracy. Again, the word that you can use it, symbol of aristocracy, very good. And also you can call it a class marker. Yeah, you can use this word in your essays as well. Analysis. Even now people do that, right? Kind of, having a Labrador would be a class marker. Yeah. And also, even though there are no dogs, some people place this kind of, I would say sign on their gates, beware of dogs. Yeah, making the humans dogs if there are no dogs, right, inside the house. Okay. And drink a bottle of wine every day. Again, that is identified as a class marker. Yeah, drinking a bottle of wine. Yeah, so cried a young Lucas who came with his sisters. And again, this one is like a little boy. This young Lucas, right? So you can see his perception of world, how kind of, class is, I would say, internalized from a very young age. This idea, even before foxhounds, here, young Lucas, can you see? Yeah, so how these little kids are trained to internalize all these ideas. Yeah, these class markers. And also, I should not care how proud I was. So they are trained to be like that. Then you would drink a great deal more than you ought, said Mrs. Bennet. And if I were to see you at it, I should take away your bottle directly. And again, you can see this idea of morality, right? Yeah, so again, kind of, this excessive amount of drinking was not accepted. That you can see. The boy protested that she should not, and she continued to declare that she would, and the argument ended only with the visit. Again, you can see how this idea of having an elderly presence is important as well to regulate, right? To regulate or limit these ideas of young minds. So here you can see Mrs. Bennet is saying, you would drink a great deal more than you ought, and I should take away your bottle. Yeah, so there you can see how this idea of the presence of kind of an elderly presence. Yeah, the idea of an elderly presence to regulate the younger generation, regulating. So that was also there. This idea of culture, I would say. Regulating the younger generation. Or molding. Molding as in, like, controlling them and bringing them up according to the good behavior. Yeah. So the idea of culture was very much present. Okay, so with that we come to an end, Reverends. Are there any questions from Pride and Prejudice? If so, you may ask. there are no questions, you can take your break, Reverence. And then meanwhile, I will just cut off the unnecessary pages. I hope she has taken them properly. If you have any questions, you may ask. Okay. Yes, Reverend. then going for the note, as in the themes. Let's try that way and we'll see which would be better. Because, yeah, okay. So we will start with chapter 8. And also before that I will just give you kind of an overall idea of the main themes, because we kind of discussed some themes when we were watching the movie as well. So as the title itself says, what would be one of the major themes, Reverend? I don't need an exact word. Yeah, expectations related to a gentleman. So that means class is there. And also when you have great expectations, how do you kind of rephrase it? What would be a synonym for expectations, Reverend? Your great expectations, who do you want to be in future, that idea? Yeah, goals and also ambition, right? So ambition would be one of the major themes related to class again. And also self-improvement and climbing the social ladder. Don't worry, I will give you a note, right? I'm just discussing as an introduction. And also, yes, and one of the major themes would be crime. And also crime and punishment. There's this book as well called Crime and Punishment. Yeah, so there you can see how crime is very prevalent in this book. Maybe Dickens wanted to say that even though London is very much highly regarded, it is the birthplace of all these criminals, something like that. So there are all these crimes happening, very dark kind of themes you would confront. Murders are there, thefts are there, and all these crimes are happening inside this lush kind of that people kind of consider it to be very posh. But again you can see how Dickens is bringing all these things to the attention of the reader as well. And also guilt and innocence is there, right? So even from the very beginning, could you see how Pip thinks that even the cows are calling him a thief? Hello, young thief. Yeah, so he has this idea of guilt. And also not only him, and also it is not only about the convict as well. Even when he thinks about Joe and Biddy, he feels very guilty at a later stage. Can you remember in the movie, in the kind of the last few moments, he's asking Joe not to be so kind towards him because he feels guilty about that. Yeah, and also guilt of Miss Havisham, right? And also guilt of the convict specifically. He's guilty about how he has spent his life, and also about losing his daughter. He thinks it's his fault. Yeah, and then how he tries to pay it back to Pip, who was kind of kind to him. So innocence is also very prominent in Pip's character too, Reverence. When he was young, he was very innocent. That's why he feels guilty about even stealing food, because he has no power over that action, because otherwise he would be killed. As in, that's how he thinks that he would be killed. So likewise, innocence is also the innocence of childhood. And how Estella's innocence is taken away by Miss Havisham. She's also a child, but it is taken away. Right? Yeah, all these ideas. And we will discuss all these when we are kind of, going through the note. Right.
Only 3 chapters.
Yes, Reverend?
Only 3 chapters.
4 chapters, Reverend. There's chapter 8. And then my numbers are different. And then this chapter...
35.
yeah, let me tell you, Reverend. It is... it is chapter 34 in mine, but I think it is different. So the second chapter which is given to you starts with as I had grown accustomed to my expectations. Yeah. And then the next chapter starts with I was 3 and 20 years of age.
35.
Yeah. So that is the next chapter, third chapter, and the fourth one is the final one. Chapter 55. It is 54 in mine, maybe 5 in yours. So I'm wondering whether the content would be different. We will see. Okay. And also you can see this geographical validity in all these Dickensian books. He's using geographically explicit places. Can be London, can be these marshes, right? Yeah, because you know that sometimes writers can use imaginary places as well, reverence, right? Yeah, but again, when you were studying Wordsworth, also you saw like Lake Isle of Innisfree, like that is using kind of, you know, who's doing the presentation on Wordsworth, him, and on Keats, him, and you, the other one, yeah, Coleridge. Okay, so I'm looking forward for the presentations next Friday. And also, I wanted to ask you, Reverend, are you free from 8:30 to 9:30 this Friday? Yeah, right. Okay, then because we have 1 extra hour left, which we couldn't complete, so there were 2 extra hours left, but we finished one when watching the movie that day. Yeah. So what is left is, yeah, this 1 hour, then we can complete it from 8:30 to 9:30. Maybe you can do the presentations, and after that we can complete Great Expectations. Yeah, because I feel like we need to do at least one modernist text so that your syllabus is chronologically complete. Yeah. Okay. Right. So yeah, we will move to chapter 8 and we will start it. Reverend, can one of you read the first 2 chapters? Mr. Pumblechook's premises?
Mr. Pumblechook's
Premises.
premises in the high street of the market town, one of
Peppercorny.
Peppercorn and
Foreigners, yes,
Foreigners
character.
as their character, as the premises of corn, candles, and
Seedsman.
seedsman could be. It appeared to me that he must be a very happy man indeed to have so many little drawers in his shop. And I wondered when I peeped into one or two on the lower tier and saw the type of brown paper baggage inside, whether the flower seeds and birds ever wanted of a fine day to break out of those gin and bloom. Master Hopbackwood and I breakfasted at 8 o'clock in the park was behind the shop, where the shopman took his mug of tea and hunch of bread and butter on a sack of peas in the first premises. I consider Mr. Blackwood right company. For such reasons, I was very glad when 10 o'clock came and we start for Mrs. Habish's thought I was not at all at my ease regarding the manner in which I should quit myself under that lady's roof. Within a quarter of an hour, we came to Mrs. Habish's house, which was all brick and dismal and had a great many iron bars to it. Some of the windows had been walled up. Of those that remained, all the lower were rustily burned. There was a courtyard in front, and that was burned, so we had to wait. After ringing the bell until someone should come to open it. When we waited at the gate, I peeped in and saw that at the side of the house there was a large brewery. No brewing was going on it. And none to have gone on for a long time.
Okay, Reverend, thank you. So, unfortunately, mine is different from yours, Reverend. So, can I have the book? So, I will refer to that one and discuss. So, that's why I thought the chapters are very long and sticking into 4 chapters. But okay, we will just stick into 4 chapters. So, many paragraphs are missing here. In this one, okay, no problem. This is like kind of a, not an abridged version. So there are different versions which are edited by different people. So that's what happens when you are famous. So, if you become famous as a novelist one day, right? So then different people would edit. Yeah, if he becomes a novelist, different editors would edit his books, right? Yeah, and then there would be differences. Okay, no worries. Okay. So we will refer this one. Mr. Pumblechook's premises in the high street of the market town were for peppercorn Ferdinand's character. So here this is a reference to this trade of seeds, Reverend. Seeds, right? Agriculture. Yeah, seeds. So that is what meant by peppercorn, all these kind of different types of seeds, right? Yeah. So, and again here you can see Pip is introduced to this high street, because up to now he was living in the marshes, right? These muddy lands, right? Yeah. So only now he is kind of entering this higher class. So this is not so posh as London, but still he's kind of stepping into Pip is being introduced to the upper class, you may write down at this moment from chapter 8. That is why chapter 8 is very symbolic. So I have selected 4 very symbolic chapters, very significant chapters. So he's introduced to the wealthy class or the upper class or the social class, as in the difference between social classes. Yeah. So he is this seedsman. So here you can see he belongs to the middle class. Pumblechook, not like Pip, because Pip belongs to the lower class, not middle class, lower class. But Pumblechook is in middle class. So here you can see corn chandler and seedsman. That means in trade. The idea of trade is also there, like contemporary social or cultural details. And yes, yeah. So it appeared to me that he must be a very happy man indeed. So here he thinks that when you have like wealth, when you have a shop, you can be happy. So up to now he did not have such thoughts, because he didn't know about anything, other than his place. Yeah, maybe his class, his living conditions. Other than that, he was not aware. But now he thinks he must be a very happy man. So now he is introduced to the middle class, not even the upper class yet. But high street and all this. Now he is introduced to this class difference, middle class. And here you can see that the chapter introduces him to this idea of upper class, and this happens kind of step by step. So now this step is towards the middle class, and then towards the end of the chapter he is introduced to the Satis house. That means Miss Havisham again representing the upper class, right? Yeah, he's introduced to the idea of class here. To have so many little drawers in his shop, and also you can see everything is kind of in detail. And I peeped into 1 or 2 on the lower tiers and saw the tied up brown paper packets inside. That means which carries all these flower seeds, reverence, brown paper packets. Yeah, it's like these little pockets or parcels which carries flower seeds, because he literally sells seeds. And again you can see that the language can be kind of confusing. Yeah, so yeah, Dickens being Dickens. Bulbs ever wanted of a fine day to break out of those jails and bloom. So what is the idea? This shows Pip's imagination. That means he thinks now these pockets are hiding all these seeds. So he thinks all these are like prisoners those are imprisoned and jailed. These seeds are jailed and imprisoned. So they want to come out this prison and bloom. So beautiful language in a way. You can, identify it as an instance for Dickensian language. And language plus Pip's imagination reference. Pip's imagination. Not only that, and also in a way, don't you think it talks about this idea of guilt, crime and punishment as one of the themes? Why? Because he is referring to jail, even when referring to the seeds. They are imprisoned. And also in a way you can take it as a symbolic reference to Pip, because Pip is like literally jailed in his class and he's trying to come out and bloom. This idea of blooming. Blooming out of his class, and also in this chapter you can see class. Middle class first and then the upper class. Is that clear, reference? Yeah. And then Mr. Pumblechook and I breakfasted at 8 o'clock in the parlor behind the shop. So before that, there's this idea here in this copy that he is not given a proper place to sleep, but the attic. Attic means, Reverend, you know? Attic of a house, the upper part of the house. It is not a very proper place. Not good for kind of, not suitable for living conditions. Just used as a storage or sometimes for servants. Yeah, so Pip is given that room, and that again shows class, right? I thought that paragraph would be here, but okay. But here you can see how Mr. Pumblechook and Pip breakfasted at 8 o'clock in the parlor behind the shop, while the shopman took his mug of tea and hunch of bread and butter on a sack of peas in the front premises. What does that say, Reverend? So Mr. Pumblechook dines inside the parlor, and the shopman means the worker in this shop. It's like, not the servant, but the worker under Pumblechook. Took his mug of tea and hunch of bread and butter on a sack of peas in the front premises. Sack of peas means, sacks, right? Yeah. So sack of peas. So because this is a seed shop, so all these sacks are there, and he doesn't even have a place to sit. Sitting on these sacks, right? Like these bags of peas. Yeah. So what does that say about Pumblechook and how he kind of, maintains class? Is he very considerate about class? He's dining inside in the parlor. Yeah, in a proper manner. But his worker, he is sitting, on all these sacks or bags of seeds and then having his meal. What does that say? Discrimination, exactly. And also the idea of class, very much present, right? And even Pumblechook is belonging to this middle class, like upper middle class, but again he has this class consciousness, treating others in a negative manner. So you can identify this side of snob here related to Pumblechook as well. He's been a snob and also very pompous.
Yes, but in the movie, would you have seen that
No,
person?
this is not there. So some details are omitted, Reverend, when the movie is made. Yeah. But when you go through some of the dialogues, you would see exactly the same dialogues. Yeah, and if you watched another modern type of a kind of a version, then you would see very different. So the one we watched is the one that has kind of, at least to an extent, has kept the plot of the movie. Yeah. So we met Mr. Pumblechook, but this dining scene was not there. Can you remember Mr. Pumblechook? He was there at the dining table when the convict got released. When the gunshots were heard, but it was like for a moment, maybe you won't remember. There were these set of people who came to dine. Yeah, there you can see. And yes, and here you can see, I considered Mr. Pumblechook wretched company. So that means, does people like him? Wretched company. No, he doesn't like him, right? Yeah, he doesn't like him. So here you can see, with his childhood innocence, he can judge Mr. Pumblechook because this is not nice what he is doing. But later you can see how it changes. Even with Pip. Pip also becomes this snob, right? So it is very ironical that he also becomes someone maybe, worse than Pumblechook, I would say. Yeah, there you can see the character development again. That's why we discussed about this as a Bildungsroman. Yeah, so showing the development of the character from the beginning. Anti-foreshadowing, Reverend. Yeah, very good. You may write it down if you want. Anti-foreshadowing. So this transformation in Bildungsroman. And also how Pip is going to change, how his common simple village life, right? So he was very satisfied with it earlier. I mean, cannot be very much satisfied with someone like Mrs. Joe, but again he was okay with his life. But again you can see how all these things are going to change from this chapter onwards. And so this is like a threshold between Pip's and Miss Havisham's world. Threshold, you know, right? Threshold of a house, like the stepping part of a house. So there's this door, right? And I'm very bad at drawing. Let me tell you, this is a house, right? So this is the inside, and this is the inside, and this is the door, and this part would be the threshold where you step inside. Yeah. So here this chapter and this reference to Mr. Pumblechook is like a threshold between Pip's and Miss Havisham's world. Yeah, because Miss Havisham belongs to the upper class, Pip belongs to the lower class, and Mr. Pumblechook is belonging to middle class, and this moment spent at his house is like a threshold. Yeah. And it is like Pip's first exposure to class, this chapter.
Excuse me, madam.
Yes, Reverend.
Can we use this verb even now? Breakfasted.
Breakfasted. It can be used, Reverend, but not very modern, I would say. Yeah. But again, it is okay that usually we say, I had breakfast, not breakfasted. If you said so, like people would consider you, the other way around. Even though you are using kind of a very academic word, I would say very ancient, archaic word. But then, yeah, so that's what happens. And I would say that's what happens with Sajid Premadasa. Yeah, he's not using a kind of a language which can be understood by people. And also it is not spoken English, yes?
Like a robot.
Yeah, like a robot, exactly. So that's what happens when you use kind of...
Showing in emotions like it.
Exactly, very passive, yes. Okay. Yes. For such reasons, I was very glad when 10 o'clock came and we started for Miss Havisham's. Though I was not at all at my ease regarding the manner in which I should admit myself under that lady's roof. Again, it shows the inexperiencedness, right? Showing Pip as innocent, And also, yeah, his innocence is shown. So at a later stage, we see how this innocence is damaged. Yeah, when he goes to London, yeah, innocence, and then what did I tell you? Inexperience. And also immaturity. He doesn't know about all these things. Immaturity, and also this not exactly childlike innocence, because he is a child anyway, right? Because these days romantic and Victorian people were very much interested in this idea of childlike innocence. Even in the poems you see that, right? Yeah, that you should be able to be like a child until your death, that idea. So that is there. You can see how this innocence is harmed towards the later stage. Yeah, and within a quarter of, and also he doesn't know how to acquit himself under that lady's roof, so he knows that, so it would be different from his own household. He has this awareness because he has spent a night at Pumblechook's, breakfasted with him, so he knows about that now. And also you don't have to worry because some paragraphs are missing, Reverend, because all the kind of the important paragraphs are here. So this editor has taken out some kind of minor details which are not very necessary. Yeah, no problem because of that. And yeah, we discussed the next part as well. Yes, within a quarter of an hour we came to Miss Havisham's house, which was of old brick. So what is the idea of old brick, Reverend? Symbolic of, yeah, symbolic of ancient, and also like Miss Havisham's life as well. Yeah, she's kind of it is like stagnated. Yeah, stagnated means kind of literally at the same place. Yeah, without moving, immobility, stagnation. Yeah, ekatana palvena, that is the idea, right? So you can learn that phrase. It is like you are kind of stuck in one place, you are unable to move, so your life is literally like it would be it won't be very enthusiastic, that idea, Reverend, right? Okay, you can teach him later about the phrase, right? And where were we? Okay, so and also dismal. What is the idea of dismal, Reverend? It is very dismal. It is like very kind of an unpleasant dark shade, right? Very dismal, gloomy, I would say. Yes. Yes. And had a great many iron bars to it. So that means it is literally locked away from the outside world, not only physically, right? Yeah, locked with iron bars. And also what does iron bars kind of as a word symbolize, Reverend? Iron bars, iron usually, iron, right? Not the iron that you use to kind of iron cloths, iron as in the material steel. Yeah, what does that kind of symbolize? Iron bars. Usually where do you find all these iron bars? Yeah, industrialization. Okay, yeah, but again specifically you would see these iron bars. Yeah, jail, exactly. I was going to tell you, you would see these iron bars when this recording is uploaded to YouTube, when Nama Rajapaksa hears about this, right? I would be jailed and you would come to see me, and then you would see all these iron bars. Yeah, so this idea of jail.
I thought another thing that
Yeah.
none can destroy iron, but its own rust.
Yes, exactly. That is also there. Yeah, so you can kind of interpret it in different ways. And also when it comes to this Satis house reference, it is just like a jail, right? Miss Havisham is literally jailed there. So it is not like anyone has done it, but self-imprisonment. Right? So you may write these iron bars represent on one hand self-imprisonment and also the idea that you brought up, Reverend, as well. So this idea of rust is also there. You would get this idea of rust later. So yeah, iron can be kind of destroyed by its own rust. So again, it is very kind of applicable to Miss Havisham's life as well. She destroys her own life, not kind of literally, but yeah, metaphorically. So self-imprisonment, you may write down, Reverend. And also the idea of locked away from the outer world, being locked away. Yeah, that is also there. On one hand, you have self-imprisonment. Self-imprisonment plus being locked away, outer world. And also this idea of rust, Reverend. So with this reference to rust you brought up, you can identify self-destruction. Because iron cannot be destroyed by anything else but from its own rust. It's just like Miss Havisham's life. It's not like that anyone else is doing it to her. She could have moved on, right? After this engagement was kind of broken off, but she didn't do that. She was stuck there. And again, that ekatana palena Reverend, right? The stagnation, that is also there in her life. She's stagnated in her life. So people use this word stagnation mostly not with kind of a physical reference, but with ideas, stagnated ideas. Yeah, that means you are kind of unable to think out of the box. Yeah, something like that. You have 5 minutes more. Yeah, the time flies, right? When we are studying romantic and Victorian literature, that happens. I'm very glad that I got to teach this because this is like my favorite genre, romantic and Victorian. I don't like modern and postmodern very much, but again, that depends. There are good books, true, but when it comes to romantic and Victorian, there is this unexplainable beauty there. You may also feel that, even with romantic poetry. Yeah. Oh no. So you may think it is easier for you to say we are to kind of we are to do this presentation this Friday. Okay.
We tried to change the schedule, but he didn't agree with that.
Ah, right.
Only
Okay.
three of us had that
Mm.
presentation on the same day. Others
Right.
don't.
Oh, right, right.
The motive cover is
Mm.
to create portfolio.
Ah, okay.
That is
Right. A portfolio.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, Reverend. No worries.
Assignment, presentation.
Everything. Okay, right. No worries, no worries. We will do it within this week because this is the 10th week, right? And there's this idea that during the 10th week that you should do the presentations. Because of that idea, we will do it from 8:30 to 9:30 Friday. So you have more days as well. Yeah, and also presentation is something that you can kind of earn marks, I would say. Yeah, because that is totally in your hand. You can earn more, right? So I gave you those comments as well that day. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, we were discussing about this old breaks. Some of the windows had been walled up. That means, what is the idea, Reverends? Those that remained, all the lower were rustily barred. Windows had been walled up. That means windows are permanently closed. Yeah. And those that remained, all the lower were rustily barred. The idea that you brought out, rust is there, right? Yeah, exactly. Covered in rust, and also it shows that they have not been opened from a long time. Either permanently closed, permanently walled up, or else they are kind of, not open. There was a courtyard in front, and that was barred. Again, you can see the idea of barring. Bars are placed everywhere, iron bars. So we had to wait after ringing the bell until someone should come to open it. While we waited at the gate, so you can see it is permanently locked away from the outside world. So anyone is not allowed to enter without permission. I peeped in and saw that at the side of the house there was a large brewery. So brewery means, which is kind of used to brew wine and stuff. Yeah, so like that. No brewing was going on in it. And again, that shows a stagnation, inactivity. Not only stagnation, but also inactivity. Yeah, nothing is happening there. Inactivity. So very passive. Everything is stopped. Inactivity is there. Nothing is happening literally.
Like the challenge to the impermanence.
Yes, right. Exactly. So you can refer to all these Buddhist ideas as well. Yes, you have. Good that you remembered. Okay. And then I peeped in and saw that at the side of the house there was a large brewery. Okay, no brewing was going on in it, and none seemed to have gone on for a long time. Again, that shows this idea of very kind of passive nature of this house. Even though it is known as Satis house, it is far from being Satis. So no satisfaction there at all. Even when we refer to Miss Havisham Mo Estella, yeah. And even at the end, Reverend, do you think like Pip and also Estella, they are not rewarded at the end, right? They don't have much of a wealth at the end. So you can see that all these snobbish characters, they are not rewarded. But who are really happy at the end of the novel are Joe and Betty, who are the kind of the most simple characters who did not expect much from life. So they are happy. Again, you can relate to Buddhism. And also the other one, this moderate person, Vemik, and also there's this other person, Herbert Pocket. He is also not very lavish. He is not snobbish. So they are also rewarded to an extent. Yeah, but those who were very much, into class, snobbish like Pip and Estella, no. They even run away from the Satis house at the end. And maybe they are kind of, running towards simplicity, you can say so. But also Dickens is trying to say that the true happiness is not kind of, coming from amassing wealth and, having great expectations. So he's actually critical of great expectations, even though the book is named as Great Expectations. Yeah. Yeah, name is very ironic, you can see. So it is
Listen to the story. They are totally opposite.
exactly total opposite. Great Expectations. So he's critical about it, and he's kind of in a way critical about this idea of climbing the social ladder, because you should be satisfied as who you are. Yeah, because there's this idea of then you are not satiated, reference. Yeah, satiated, right? Yeah, satisfied, satiable.
Yes.
Yes.
If we refer to Samahajiva in Buddhism,
Yeah,
Samahajiva.
you can refer to it. The correct way of living, right? Yeah, you can. Exactly. And also this idea of middle path, again you can refer to. Yeah, exactly. Why? Because you can see, as I told you, Pip and Estella are not rewarded. Who are after class and who are after wealth and all these things. And there's this moment that Pip even thinks about owning Satis house one day. Right? Yeah. But literally he runs away from it at the end. he's kind of, in a way forced to run away, I would say. Because Estella, and also Estella loses everything as well, who is very proud. And the fact that her roots are in this criminal world, very ironic. In a way, he's trying to show that everybody is equal. He's kind of attacking the idea of class, in a way, Dickens. And in his books, you can see Hard Times, David Copperfield, those books are very kind of, very lengthy, but beautiful. And also, my personal favorite is The Tale of Two Cities. It's very beautiful. Again, kind of very lengthy, and this is like the kind of the most interesting book by him, Great Expectations. And also there's this humor as well. And also his use of language can be complicated, can be complex, but on the other hand, very beautiful. You can see that even this idea of, seeds being jailed and trying to come out and bloom. So these are like not very common metaphors, reference, I would say. Yeah. So you can see all these things in Dickens. Okay. So with that we will end reference. Any questions? You may keep this book. Right. And they also please take your book when you come to the class reference, because in mine some paragraphs are missing, so that I can refer to that book, your book, and discuss. But meanwhile you should read the book if you have time. Yeah. Yes, Venus. You are also having great expectations. As in, you should have great expectations, right? So the greatest expectation would be what? Yes, Nibbana, exactly. And even Dr. Varuni and I once discussed, it is sad that these writers were not exposed to something like Buddhism, because they had such great ideas, right? But again, they were lacking something, right?
No need to be a Buddhist to understand Buddhism.
Exactly, exactly. So no need to be a Buddhist, but they were not kind of exposed to it, Reverend. Yeah, and even Reverend Ajahn Brahma also, right? Yeah, so he was an Australian, not coming from a Buddhist country. But again, you can say, and once I met this Czech Reverend who has this very kind of great awareness of Buddhism, and he was kind of he was a Catholic by birth. So like that we were discussing, it is really good that if they were kind of exposed to it, yeah, and they were kind of, it would have been a great blessing for them. Because with that awareness, even Dickens, you can see how nicely he kind of ironically brings out the idea of great expectations. Yeah, because finally he's talking about simplicity. Again, you can refer to all these Buddhist ideas, but we were kind of sad because they were not aware of the core principles.
Maybe it's our understand the something or the natural reality.
Yeah.
The idea maybe like with the Buddhist idea.
Exactly, Reverend. So it doesn't have to necessarily be highlighted as Buddhism. Yeah. So we had this discussion literally about Keats, because it was like he was so kind of, very much close to this idea of comprehending this idea of impermanence and all these things. But again, that he was very sad simultaneously. It was not a proper awareness, I would say. Yeah, if he was aware of this kind of, all these ideas, then yeah. And even rebirth, right? Yeah, they were not aware of that idea, and also it was not kind of, acceptable as well, rebirth. Yeah. But after some time, you may have read all these books and research done on rebirth by Western professor Brian Weiss. Yeah, so rebirth is scientifically proven and accepted in the Western Hemisphere now as well. Because there are so many research, because earlier it was not like that. Because according to the Bible, there can be only one birth, but now they are proving it wrong with scientific evidence. Yeah, and you can see how ahead is Buddhism, right? Yeah. Okay. My phone is used to. Yeah, that happens to you as well. Yeah. So every